gịnị ka iji ha na-eme ịmaghị n'ikpe ka malite n'etiti ụmụ Chukwu ọtụtụ mgbe ka ị na-anụ okwu Chukwu ọ gịnị ka iji ha na-eme ịmaghị n'ikpe ka malite n'etiti ụmụ Chukwu.
Ọ bụrụ na ezi omume unu akarịghị nke ndị ode akwụkwọ na ndị Farisii, unu ama abanata na alaeze n'igwe. If your righteousness does not go deeper than that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. The way Esther was listening attentively when the readings were proclaimed in Igbo, I was asking myself whether she had now started understanding Igbo. After so many visits to Nigeria and to Nsukka, who knows whether by absorption she already has started understanding some Igbo beyond Kedu. My dear brothers and sisters in the Mhoronanya, Sunday number 3. How do we recognize a good Christian, a true Christian? Onye bụ onye otu Kristi, onye otu Kristi bụ onye abaptiziri nke kwerenu na-emepụta n'omume ya nkuzi niile nke Jesu Kristi. Baptism, yes, is required for one to be a Christian. But it is not just enough. One has to believe all that Jesus taught us and live all that out. You have to live it out. And Christ began showing us how his true disciples will be recognized on the Sermon on the Mount. Aibidore, blessed are the poor in spirit, the meek, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, the merciful. Iha bihe jamandu to Christi. And I told you from the first day, these are attitudes. Attitudes that then produce action. Beatitudes are beatitudes, the attitudes of being, that then produce consequences that are seen in our action. Gonyo tu Kristi na adara. Edara hom imegdo mume amarni bonyo tu Kristi. Then last Sunday, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. The clear message in your last Sunday, and we were fortunate, blessed last Sunday, because we had the presence here of men and women, religious, consecrated persons, who through their vows, the life of vows, are trying to show us how to be light and how to be salt. In a country like in Nigeria, where I said last Sunday, we need the light and we need the salt that purifies our society and the salt that conserves the goodness. The problem we have is that once 1, 2, 3, a few people have become corrupt, we allow those few people to corrupt the system, rather than letting our own salt purify that system and conserve it in goodness. The problem with our society, especially in Nigeria, is that once somebody has put off the light, we allow darkness to cover all of us, when we have the possibility of reflecting the light of Jesus Christ who alone is the light of the world, but permits us to share in his being light. Today, he gives us very practical examples. N'ihe ọgụgụ nke nta na Jesu na-agwa ọ gwara anyị na anyị bụ nnu nke ụwa, bụrụ ihe nke ụwa, and how. You don't become salt and light by being just ordinary and commonplace. Because if salt loses its saltness, it will never be good again, and it will be thrown out. And I reminded you last Sunday that pure sodium chloride does not lose its taste. Salt does not lose its taste naturally, but it can be polluted. Now, Jason Agwai, there are concrete examples in the way you live out basic challenges in our life. Basic. In our relationship with our neighbors. And now, just in a handles on a salt of the earth and light of the world. No. There has to be something extraordinary in your life. Because Christians are ordinary persons living extraordinary lives. Example, Jesus warned you, do not think I am coming to remove the law of Moses. Abịarụghị ikpochefu iwu nke Moses. Ọ nkụzi niile ndị amụma kụziri. I didn't come for that. To take away and to cancel the law and the prophets. No. You remember that at the transfiguration, he was accompanied by Moses and Elijah. Moses representing the law and Elijah representing the prophets. Jesus saying that he came to fulfill. To fulfill means to bring a thing to its perfection. He didn't come to remove. I'll tell you a story. When the new catechism of the Catholic Church was published, where Pope John Paul II published the new catechism of the Catholic Church. So it was announced, now you are publishing the new catechism. Immediately it was published, one man came to his parish priest and said, Father, I know catechism. I said, yes, so my brother. I said, I hear that a new catechism has been published. Has the sixth commandment been removed? Jesus said, no, I did not come to remove any of those commandments. I came to show you the true meaning of those commandments. And why could he do that? He himself gave the law. Because he is God. Only the lawgiver can interpret the law correctly. Because he is the person who knows the mind of the law. And the letter to the Hebrews will always remind us at the beginning that in the past, God spoke to our ancestors in many ways and in various ways. But in our time, he has spoken through his Son. He spoke through the prophets before. Now he has spoken to us through his Son. Because that word was with God in the beginning. That word through whom everything was made. That word was God. And that word dwelt among us, became human being and dwelt among us. In all the laws and in the prophets. And he says, not even one little bit of it will pass away until it has been fulfilled. And the fulfillment of all the law and the prophets, but Jesus Christ himself. To take a few examples, you have heard in the past that you were commanded, do not commit murder. Thou shalt not kill, the 5th commandment. And most of the 10 commandments were do not, do not, do not, do not. But for the 4th that says, honor your father and your mother, and the 3rd, thou shalt keep holy the day of the Lord. Others, do not, do not, do not. And Christ is telling us what to do to fulfill those commandments. But that is not what will make you light of the world and salt of the earth. The simple fact that you don't kill does not make you light of the world or salt of the earth. Because even those who are not Christians respect life. Ebunochu is a commandment not only for Christians. But if you want to show you are a Christian, you must go to the root of what brings murder. That is anger. Anger. Iwe. Anger is only one letter shorter than danger. If you add D in front of anger, it becomes danger. Anger is the most dangerous feeling a human being can have. Iwe. Asige bunochu. Maniem na gwagabo. Wenere nwanne gi iwe fuleri iwe n'obe. Because that is where it stands. That's where it starts. Onye na-egbo ọgụ. Ya vulilekere ụzọ gbome ịba mba na ịrụ eka. Maka na ọba abagide mbaro wedeka na ọ ga-abịa. Anger, iwe. And it is not only by the sword or the gun that people are killed. People are also killed by slander. Onwere ndị anyị ji mere ọnụ bie eme ga-akpaka. Ndụ ha edege enweghị isi. We have destroyed so many lives by the very negative and uncomplimentary and false things we have said about people. That is as grievous as murder. Ọ bụrụ na o nwere ihe nwanne gị mere gị, gbaa ya ana. Gbaa ya na nwanne gị. Do not come to bring your offerings to me if you are still holding grudges against your neighbor, against your brother. And remember, Jesus is using the word here constantly, your brother or your sister, one nigga, a person with whom you share the same faith. Paul always addresses all of us as brethren, brothers and sisters, because we share the same faith. This diocese since 1972. I'm pioneer. So na niem na-ekwu dorumenya. Ma ya bụ ihe m na-ekwu bụ na-asị m na onye na-ekwu n'ọnụ ụlọ ụka ma ọ bụ na-eje ụka na-eke onye ọzọ ohu bụ nwa ekwensu. Because you cannot call God your father and call another God ohu or slave. Because it means you have chosen another father, Satan himself. And you heard it today. If you say that your brother is a fool or a renegade, you will answer for it in hellfire. If you say that your own brother is illegitimate, if you say that your own brother is owned by another person, then you are the person eka jihwaz. So such things, these are the things that make us light of the world and salt of the earth. I told you yesterday, and one n'Ugbenajima igwe ndị Ugbenajima bụ Catholic. Ọtụtụ igwe n'ebe anyị na bụ ndị Catholic. But o nwere ihe ndị igwe ndị Ugbenajima mmeri. Mụ ga-adịghị sure na igwe Catholic ndị ọzọ nwere courage ime na Igbo Nsụka. O nwere mkpọrọ na-abọ n'Ugbenajima asị na ha bụ ndị ohu na ha bụ ndị aka nwe. And the Igwe did a rite that liberated them and reintegrated them into the society. Whether the people accept that or not, got their own problem. But as far as the community is concerned, through the instrumentality of a Catholic who was trying or who is trying to be light and salt. Ị na-anya ọkada, ị na-anya keke, ị na-arụ n'ọfịs, ị na-akụzi nkụzi, wherever you are living, whatever you are doing, how are you light and salt? Iwe, anger against your brother, against your sister, hatred. And one other thing that we misinterpret in our culture is adultery. Ịbịa n'ala Igbo, especially n'Ekaba anyị Nsụka, adultery is a sin only for women. Sọsọ nwaanyị na-atụwa ụkwụ, we know it. And nwaanyị tụwa ụkwụ, no amount of confession or yeje for some men, yekwe emeghe kwete na nwaanyị gada ọcha. No, jeje mene ho menala. That means na neja goma. I have told you, ihe ka na adamma bụ ọ bụrụ na nwoke ayi oyi ya nweme sign na karịa n'ihu ve ga na ga-echuchi oyi ọzọ sign ọzọ aka ya n'ihu ve ọ ga-aba anyị fụja na anyị lege kpuche mask njikọ ụmụ ha chekpere mmanwụ asị gị na onye ka elewa akatakpa na anaghị ahụ ihu anyị. Or at least many, not all, because there are also very faithful, committed husbands. But Christ is telling us, it is not just enough that you should not commit adultery. But whatever will lead you to commit adultery is what you should avoid. Because adultery begins with the thought, plan, desire, and all those things. Makanasa ono na sonso ala. Ye beleni kube. No bi he kere ala keri kube. If you want to avoid adultery, avoid all the thoughts and companies and actions that will lead you to adultery. No matter what, na kechete meme ha ama mabugo ke izeja mabugo ko ozioko. Geri ga gero no bone yanso no no je jize je keni omoche. He won't eat because for him it is forbidden. But then he will use his teeth to share it for children. That is what Jesus calls hypocrisy of the scribes and the Pharisees. Externally we pretend, but he tells us, go to the roots. And you have to avoid what we call in Catholic Christian morality, occasion for sin. Every time maybe a confession is a father and subugubuni na ngike manya. No gabe ya na to gwo la na manya. Father bunyego or pipi asege go bambo fun ije go mba na ere manya. Mo nwere mba na ere manya de no zo big. Obegi gataga mbo mo manya sogu ni piegide ja se heja enta unu no garaga nta. Mi piere mbo mo ni ga huta manya geji. Ini ge soro uzo ozo lagde. Nandaba isne soruza warala kunya narigbeyoy. Soruza zolagde. If you know that anytime you pass through this road, you will fall into this danger, avoid that route. But the unfortunate thing is, science, especially animal and psychology, tells us human beings are the only animals who will get hurt at the same point by the same thing twice. Every other animal, once they have been hurt once in a point, try to avoid that point. But a man will be passing. Oh, gahiku. Oh, hutam bushishi futa. Oh, the porishi. Hey, oshishi herself. Oh, gar. Tomorrow, oyata, oya the pishi de. Hey, oshisha. Egbutu ledigie. Oyeji egbutu. Surumbo zogara. Remove the occasion for sin. And that is the only way you can protect your integrity as a married person. And besides, one thing that has been totally destroyed in our civilization now, worldwide, but love. We no longer know what love means. We no longer respect love. We no longer preserve and even cultivate love. Agwanam Fada Malaki no kutukuta atajenwe part A and part B. Part A bunkam ne kukita, part B bunkoji kuma natasharu rioja gwande Valentine. Makana no mokorobia no magbobia ne Valentine. Kedi hem marama gwande Valentine. Because in the next 2 days now, no gabo Saint Valentine. Yes, one each. That feast of lovers that has been completely turned upside down. The word love has been so corrupt that when somebody now, when a woman tells me, Bishop, I love you, and you, as if it is no longer the commandment that God gave us, that Jesus gave us, to love one another. Now, the only thing I will tell you this feast of St. Valentine, have the courage to love another person and to express that love, especially those of you who are already committed to marital love. Jishie nkegi ike o. Mabu nwunye gi mabu di gi jishie ike. Don't ever get tired of telling him or her, I love you, very early in the morning, every time. Ona sige kuchizile nti, all I kriya o. You know the story of this man who is 90 years, but every day he calls his wife, darling, honey, darling, honey. But how come after 90 years you still call your wife with so sweet pet names? Oh, say, my dear, I forgot her name 10 years ago, and I'm afraid to ask her. So, so name gneki gab darling ne honey. Nke katanjo mosha gabundo daddy. Why he said ye gab daddy ya mugde go no the ganjo. Me umokoro no mabogo so gabu baby. Oh. Oh young man. Na kwadile nwai. But onyo na kwadile si a baby, but si a dik parakam. Say baby le mozo na abe magmu baby. But the important thing is that it is beautiful to love and to fall in love and to be committed to love. Manenda le mere Valentine. Valentine ke this year abugun ki go gift to. Valentine, a Valentine gift last year. That is for the girl like Dinunye. Concretize the thing now. For how long will you be engaged without commitment? So I know some girls will be telling me here, Father Gwashiwe he cannot this bumper. But then I'm telling the young men, do not be afraid to get committed. And I'm telling the young women, there is no Mr. Right out there. Get whoever you like and make him right. Because in na chokwa onye settle guru. Onye obuna settle guru mo legwa ni shadgoy. Because marrying is a part of the struggle of young men. So if you are waiting for those who have settled, you are also waiting for those who have tried 15 girls and it has not worked to, or you may not settle about. The feast of love is a feast of fidelity, feast of courage, feast of commitment. Please, do not turn it into a feast of committing sin, because that's not what it is. And that's not what it was meant to be. Let us pray that our young men and young women will have the courage to remain faithful and committed. And let us also pray that married people will continue to rediscover the initial love that made them man and wife. You know, one Indian told an American, you marry those you love, and the marriage does not last. We love those we marry, and the marriage lasts. It is more important for you to love the person you marry than to marry the person you love. Because if you marry the person you love and don't love the person you marry, the marriage will not last. But even if you didn't love the person that before the marriage, and once you marry, he or she marries you, then you begin to love the person, then that is what will give the marriage constancy. But do not commit adultery. It's valid for man and woman, and you must also protect your purity, because impurity is the source of infidelity in marriage. And finally, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Ejele yangana mama. No yes. Gabagan. Oh nanga. Ma ha bokoburu no obugi ya Bible nwan ke Chukwu dofugire n'ọnụ. Ofu nwanne m nwoke si na onye wori ihe na ajeje vute n'ihe mma na abịrịba. Na aje vute mmanya ji akpọ ya na abịrịba. Na ọ bụ ya na-egbu mmadụ na Bible anaghị egbu mmadụ. Na Bible anaghị egbu mmadụ na ya ga-anaghị Bible. Imagine how many Christians are swearing falsely in the court of law. And you'll be touching the Bible and saying, I swear to speak only the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth. And we are not afraid. Light of the world and salt of the earth. You must go beyond the ordinary. There must be something extraordinary in the way you are living your normal life. Otherwise, you cannot be recognized as a true Christian. If you want to be for you to be recognized as a true Christian, there is a type of inner fidelity that bursts out like a beautiful flower, and anybody who sees it says, this is a Christian.
Chukwu ogini kiji aneme imali n'ikpe kamalite n'etiti ụmụ Chukwu ọtụtụ mgbe gị na n'okwu Chukwu ogini kiji aneme imali n'ikpe kamalite n'etiti ụmụ